Hi, this is Steph, and you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting from New Haven, Connecticut.
Welcome to Deep Focus, a radio show about movies in New Haven. I'm your host, Tom Breen, and I'm joined today by a repeat guest, someone who has been on for, I think this may be your third or fourth episode, but I will say you have the unique distinction of having been on the only show where we lost the recording after it. So,
That's right.
All you listeners who listened live to Trish Clark and Patrick Whalen on the show in July of 2017, you're the only ones who will ever have heard that show. So
the only time Pat was on, too.
The only time Pat was on. And he's not here for reasons we'll talk about in a second, I'm sure.
Right.
But before we go any further, I want to say first, it's great to have you back. Trish, the producer of New Haven's 48-hour film project, New Haven, which we'll be talking about shortly. But welcome back.
Thank you. I'm also your first guest ever, too.
First guest ever, that's right. All the way back in August of 2015 to talk about the 48 as well, right?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. So it's that time of year that, you know, this is really my introduction to active, like actual movie making in New Haven, the 48-hour film project. Since you're the person at the helm of it, could you introduce listeners who may not be familiar with it already to what is 48? What's your role with it?
So I'm the city producer. The 48-hour film project is the longest running timed film competition in the world. And so this is year 8 for New Haven. It's year 19 for the 48 in general. And for the 48, teams of filmmakers sign up, and they have to make a short 4 to 7 minute film in 48 hours. They write it, script it, act it, score it, do everything in those 48 hours. On Friday night of our filming weekend, which is July 27th through 29th, the filmmakers pick a film genre out of the hat, so they don't know what they're going to get till they get there, and they will have 2 genres to choose from. So they pick their, film genre out of the hat, which is, it could be comedy or Western, and they would have to make one of those. And then they get assigned a specific character, prop, and line of dialogue, and those are the same ones for all. In this case, we have 30 teams right now. We'll probably have more by next week kickoff. And they will have the specific character, prop, and line of dialogue that must be in their film. So last year it was Grant or Grace Broha, a cheerleader. And I think the prop last year was a wallet. And the line was, "Let me tell you something." So it's usually like a generic line that could easily fit into any dialogue.
And I'm going to ask you, could you pull the mic a bit closer to your mouth? Or maybe, perfect, just like that. And so tell us a bit, so you said 30 teams have signed up thus far for the 2018 edition, which we'll get to the specific times and locations, but what kinds of folks participate in 48? Are these professional filmmakers? Are these amateurs? Everywhere in between?
Everywhere in between. That's a good way to put it. So yeah, we have a wide range. We have people that do this professionally, people that do it like weekend warriors that want to do it, students. We have a 10-year-old SAG actress who leads a team, and she's actually the youngest team leader of any 48 in the world. So she got that distinction last year, and she's back again this year. But of course, she was younger last year, so we'll stick with that. You know, the young
And
age.
was she a Screen Actors Guild certified actress last year as well? Or
Yes, she was. Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Is she a New Havener?
Well, she's a Connecticutite. She's not from New Haven.
Yeah.
She's, I think, Southington.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I should say I want to make sure to ask the broad questions for people who may not be familiar with it already, but the Independent has covered the 48 many a time in years past.
Yeah.
I've usually spent the weekend following around different teams, and it really has been a wonderful crash course in terms of the diversity of of teams of filmmaking experience that goes into these different 4 to 7 minute movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think last year I was with a team led by an Italian PhD at Yale,
Yep.
And also by Isaac Blau. Wasn't one of the team leaders, but there was a 9-year-old who featured very prominently in the direction of some of the scenes. But so you really, really do get the full range. In terms of the teams that have registered thus far, those 30, do they look like a pretty representative bunch from what you've seen in years past? Are there more
like
New Haveners or Connecticutites than usual or less?
There are actually. So I feel like we have a good group so far. Usually you don't have to be from New Haven or even from Connecticut to do it. You just have to sign up and have at least one team representative at the kickoff and drop-off. But we have notoriously had teams from out of state as well, and kind of usually more from out of state than from in-state. But this year it completely flipped, and out of the 30, I'd say at least like 20, 25 are Connecticut based, which I find very encouraging. I love that we have more creative Connecticut people stepping up to take part in this competition.
Wow, that is so exciting to hear. You may not have an answer, but why? Why do you think that is?
I do not know why. That's a great question.
Are these familiar faces, even from outside of 48 for you?
We have, it's always a mix. We do have some new people that are brand new. I don't know who they are, and we'll find out next week at the kickoff. And then we have sometimes what I think happens a lot is people might be on a team one year and then realize the next year, well, now I want to be in charge. So they've branched off to do their own team. And I don't always get to know everybody on the team because it could be 2 people, or it could be 50, I don't know. But then they've, decided they had a great time. They want to do it again, but they want to be in charge this time. So they'll make their own team.
So you've laid out the general scope of the 48-hour film project, some of the criteria that go into each movie, but I wonder if you could give our listeners a taste of the types of movies that are actually made. Now, you held a screening last night at Best Video in Hamden of some of the best movies to come out of the 2017 competition.
Yep.
Could you just quickly maybe tell us about 1 or 2 of the movies that played last night, just to give us a sense of how someone might incorporate a Grace or a Grant Broha and a Wallet into a 4 to 7 minute movie?
So last night what we screened was the best of 2017. So there were 10 films that all won at least one award last year. And they range from, we had a couple pictures in the New Haven Independent article this morning. And there's one that had Grant or Grace Broha, the cheerleader, and it was Grant Broha in a cheerleading uniform, and just walked through someone on this rather odd scavenger hunt of finding a picture and going. Then he picked a picture out of his wallet. So that's, just generic as it was. He opened up his wallet and picked the picture out. And it was mysterious and very bizarre and very funny. Most people end up, whether they intend to or not, throwing some comedy into the 48s a lot of times. There was also, what's another good one from last night? Mama's Dream, done by Dutch Elm Disease, Ben's been on this show before as well. They had kind of a hectic movie where someone was, a bookie was after somebody for doing something that they didn't like, so to speak. But then they had a fight scene up on East Rock, and someone threw him over East Rock railing, which was fun to see. So you can do whatever you want, in terms of the 40. It's a as long as you're within your genre it's wide open to interpretation, and so we get all different things that happen.
So let's say someone's listening right now and they think, this is great. I so want to participate, or I so want to watch some of the movies that are made through this. You mentioned that this year's competition weekend is July 27th to the 29th, which is a week from tomorrow, if you're listening live. So the last weekend of July. But where is this taking place? How do people participate? How do they take part in the fun of 48?
Well, you can still sign up right up to the kickoff, and you can just go onto our website to sign up, which is just www.48hourfilm.com/New Haven, or go on our Facebook page and hit the sign up button, and you can register your team and sign up. And so the kickoff and drop off for the teams will be at the Rough Draft in Hamden. And
so that's formerly the space.
That's
formerly
up on
Treadwell Avenue, I think is the Treadwell Street, something.
Yep.
That kind of industrial park of music venues.
Yep. So nice parking lot there as well. And the premiere screenings will be kind of probably groups of 10 to 12 films at a time. And that will be at the all-new State House, which we will be opening up on State Street very soon. And that is going to be on Wednesday, August 1st and Thursday, August 2nd. And then when we, after the judges get to look at everything and make their decisions, we'll have our Best of Awards night back at the Bijou Theater in Bridgeport, and that'll be Friday, August 24th.
And then some of these movies even have a trajectory or lifespan after that final award screening. Can you tell us about what happens after the Bijou Theater screening?
Sure. So the winner of the city goes on and screens at Filmapalooza, which is kind of like the Oscars for the 48-hour film project. And that's in different places each year. Last year it was in Paris. This year it will be in Orlando come next March. They just announced that this week. So the winner gets to go there and screen against all the other winners of different 48s in different cities, and they get their trophy. And then 10 to 12 of them go on to screen it to Cannes. And so our winner last year at Filmapalooza got Best Editing over all the 48s in the world. And then they got to screen at Cannes as well. So yeah, that was very exciting.
Did you talk with the filmmakers after that Cannes screening just to hear about that experience, or did you hear anything about how
they
how
couldn't
that went?
afford the trip to go, unfortunately? So they were very upset about that. But
their movie played nevertheless, even if they were not present.
That is right. Yeah, and they weren't even at Filmapalooza in Paris because, again, not a cheap trip. So, but they live streamed those awards. So I was watching them at work, watching the live stream, and I heard the music because theirs was a road movie, but with distinct music, and it was like a road. Instead of driving down the road, they traveled down the path of a bar and got through many different distractions and diversions. And so again, a wide open berth for what the definition of the genre is. And so I heard the music and I was like, what's that? And I was like, oh my God, they just won. Like what? And I am not kidding, Tom. I started crying. I started tearing up. I was so happy for them. And they weren't watching the live stream. So I, immediately start messaging them and they're like, no, Trish, you're kidding. I was like, no. So I got to, tell them. And I was like, oh, and by the way, you're going to Cannes. And that was one of the best professional moments I ever had to say that to the team.
What a wonderful story. So I'm not surprised that you get emotional over that because you mentioned this is the 8th annual 48 in New Haven, and you have been there for all 8. You brought this
I brought
to
this
New
here.
Haven. And I should say that the 48 has been around, I think, since 2001 or the very early 2000s. And now it takes place in over 100 cities around the world. Right? This is really an international competition. So it is no mean feat to make it all the way to win Best Editing, to make it all the way to the Cannes Film Festival. So why do you do this every year? Why 8 years?
I'm crazy.
8 years in, the glamour, the glitz, the celebrity, I'm sure. But what gets you excited about this pretty hectic weekend and weeks worth of planning?
Weeks.
Months,
sure. I only
years,
plan this for a couple weeks.
Decades worth of planning.
I mean, I work on it all year round. And I mean, this is what I love to do. I love producing. My background is in producing TV and then film, and it's just what I love to do. And I love to work with all the different creative participants and connect them to more creative participants. And we have a very nice group that is very supportive of each other. they come to the screenings, everyone's happy for everybody else. Because, some films are great, some films aren't, but you know what? You did it. You set out to make a film over the weekend, and then it's up on a screen. And that's fantastic. And it's a good collaborative effort, and we like to do that. And we like to get all creative people together.
Well, I think that's a perfect transition to one of the other big projects that you've been working on over the past, well, I guess year, but really launched in January. Maybe you've been working on it for even longer. But
we worked on it behind the scenes for a little while, but then we're in our first year with the Nutmeg Institute.
So tell me and the listeners a bit about what the Nutmeg Institute is, how it relates to your work with 48, and also the New Haven Documentary Film Festival, which we've had a number of shows on over the years. The annual Documentary Film Fest, co-curated and directed by Gorman Bouchard and Charles Musser. How does the Nutmeg Institute play into those two?
Well, so the Nutmeg Institute is myself, along with Patrick Whalen, who runs the 48 with me, and our third partner, Michael Field, who has also been on the show before with you. We kind of got together and wanted to start the Nutmeg Institute to, again, get creative people together, to have a spot to get, education, workshops, connections. Just like if I'm shooting, maybe I can float out, see what kind of cast and crew I can get, where I can get equipment, good rentals, like just kind of working together and networking and making everyone stronger because of it. Our third partner, Michael Field, likes to say, he's like, this is what I wish was around when I started in the business, many, many years ago, because we're a little older. So it's a whole different day and age from when we started in the business, where I worked at VH1 for years, and you got that job, and then you were there, and you went from one show to the next show. You just did production after production. But that also had a huge umbrella. That was Paramount. That was Viacom. And now, it's freelance, and you can do it on your phone. You don't have to always you can do Kickstarter. You can do Indiegogo. You can do these things on your own the way you want to do them. But then once you do it, where are you going to show it? What are you going to do? So these are, we kind of wanted a spot to help people navigate through all this stuff. So because we've had some experiences, at various festivals. And so now the Nutmeg is overseeing the 48. It's me and Pat anyways. We are we're the managers of NH Docs. So we're going to try to make that even bigger and better and get more funding for that to keep expanding that as it's been growing over the last few years. We've hosted some workshops and done some training, and we'll be doing more of that. And so it's these things like sometimes NH Docs or the 48, they think, oh, this is just once a year. No, because of the Nutmeg, we're keeping everything around all the time. So this is always a resource to go back to, always a pool of people to go back to and to connect with.
So I want to ask you what your favorite thing that you've done thus far through the Nutmeg since launching officially almost 8 months ago now. But I want to share one of my favorite parts of the Nutmeg that I found just looking through the Nutmeg's website earlier today, and that's in the blog that you keep on the site. What is the URL for the site? Do you remember? nutmeginstitute.com.
Pretty sure.
Yeah. So I saw a guest post by a Connecticut filmmaker named Charles Roxburgh, who was talking about how inspired he was to make low-budget horror movies by watching something called the Spine Tinklers horror movies series on WTXX in Waterbury and Hartford and New Haven growing up. And he came across at a local video store with a friend a VHS of a movie called Attack of the Beast Creatures. And as he was watching that low-budget movie, he and his friend said, that doesn't look like California. That kind of looks like Stratford, Connecticut. Right. Or that looks like Fairfield, Connecticut.
Very familiar.
And then in the credits of the movie, they saw, indeed, the movie had been made in Stratford, and they felt so inspired that this movie that they rented at a video rental store could have been made in Connecticut, that they went out and made their own called Don't Let the River Beast Get You. Definitely one of the funnest things that I saw on the Nutmeg's blog. But I wonder if you could...
And it just got posted today.
Perfect.
Very new.
But I feel like it kind of encapsulates the spirit of local filmmaking inspiring other, amateur filmmakers or professionals to make movies in Connecticut, to make movies where they're from. Can you tell me and the listeners one or two things that you are proudest of, or that you had the most fun doing thus far under the aegis of the Nutmeg?
A good question. We had a partnership with Ed Advance, with teaching some after-school kids production, and so that was through the Boys and Girls Club, and that was at a Waterbury branch. But kids who had never even seen a camera then got to do a short film after a few weeks of training, and maybe they'll make a 48 someday. But it's like just getting them excited about something and learning that, like, you can do this. Like, because, I mean, even when I was growing up, like, I watched TV all the time. That's how I told the time. I'm like, oh, the Muppets are on, this, I know what time it is, And then, like, I remember when I went to my high school guidance counselor, like, well, you could do that for a living. I'm like, oh, really? Like, so, I mean, that's something that, like, inspired me. Like, oh, it's not just a hobby. Or, well, it is. But then that can turn into what you do all the time. And that's, so that makes me proud. I like that.
Are there any upcoming events for the Nutmeg Institute, for NH Talks? I mean, 48 is the big one. And we spoke about that, but anything else we should keep our eyes out for?
Yeah, so 48's the big one because, filming next weekend, and then the screenings and the best of. So that kind of is the high occupancy time right now of year for the 48. But for NH Docs, we're gonna do stuff like probably once a month, like have a screening here or there, and it might be, I think we're gonna have a screening of an even newer version of the Pizza movie at Nebco in September. We're gonna have The Village is gonna screen on Worcester Square Park outdoors, which will be nice in September as well.
Oh, great.
So we're trying to spread it out, so they all might not be right here. Because maybe we'll do something at Best Video. We're lining up to do some screenings there. Maybe at Quinnipiac. So we're spreading out. So it's Connecticut. It's not just here. And it's getting the word out with different productions and different creative people that we're a viable option. Like you said, like, when Chris saw the movie, the VHS and said this was shot in Connecticut. You can shoot so many things in Connecticut. We have every season. We have every location, from a mansion to a river walk. I mean, like, you can find anything here. And so why shouldn't we be like a nice hub? And we're between two big ones. We're between Boston and New York. So, and we have the people. We have the drive. Let's make it happen.
I think that is as good a place to end its any. Let that be the go to you listeners who I'm sure are listening because you're interested in local movies, to check out 48 if you haven't done so already. And I love how you mentioned how kind of roving the Nutmeg is, because you've already mentioned the Rough Draft is going to be the kickoff and drop-off location for the 48. Screenings will take place at the State House and at the Bijou Theater. You had something at Best Video last night, and Worcester Square, you're going to be having a Village screening. So it's really all over this area of Connecticut. So
yeah, we try to spread the love.
Good way to check out all the different interesting cultural spots in this area. Can you share one more time the website for 48 in case people, or just how people can register for?
Yeah, our website is www.48hourfilm.com/New Haven, or you can find us on Facebook, and the sign up button is there as well, which will lead you right to the website.
And anything else that you want to plug before we go? Any other websites?
Follow us, like us on 48 Hour Film Project, the Nutmeg Institute, and reach out to us. Say hi.
You can find links to all the stuff we spoke about today at deepfocusradio.com, where you can also find nearly 3 years of conversations about movies in New Haven, only one of which is not on that website because of technical difficulties. We will not discuss any further, but this one, I'm sure, will be posted post-haste. Thanks again for coming in, Trish.
Thanks for having me.